My name is Hanna Goodman Sukiennik.
Mrs. Sukiennik, would you start off by telling us a little bit about what your life was like before the war?
When the war broke out, I was in the first lyceum. This was a system, the newest system in Beijing. I was a teenage girl, and I was 15 and a half years when the war started. We are from a mid-class family. I had 3 brothers and there were 3 sisters, 6 children, and we were doing well. We were not very rich, but we were doing well. My mother especially was very anxious for us to have education, so she sacrificed everything to send me and my sister and my brothers to school, not only to elementary, but to high school.
Tell us a little bit about when the war started. Where were you? What happened with your schooling? What led up to this?
Well, the school usually starts in Europe, in Poland especially, the 3rd of September. But my brother was already in the army. He was called to the Polish army. That is going to be a war. And the war broke out the 1st of September. Since I lived on a German border, we had already in the 3rd day the German military people. And of course they were terrible to us. Especially one sect of the city was a lot of Jewish population. So they burned the houses there, and they didn't let the people come out from the houses, so they burned themselves to death. So that was in the first day when they came.
And so what happened then with the war coming on and with your family?
Well, I think we were doing fairly well, if not that every day with deportation. They were taking sick people, children, retarded children, people who were sick for a long time. And every so often, every 2nd week or the 3rd week was a deportation, so we're hiding because we're wondering who's going to be the next one. And that was going on during the whole time we were in Beijing. We couldn't walk on the streets where the Germans walked, so we did have to just use one sidewalk to go any place. And of course, we did have to wear Schandeband, that was called, bands on our clothes with a Jude written down. Later they changed that we had in the front and in the back the star Jude. The Polish people were not very helpful. German people didn't really know by looking at you if you are Jewish or not, but they were helpful. They was telling them, Jude, this is Jude, this is a Jew. So as you see, it wasn't very easy for people who lived with us all those life that they became like that. And it was, of course, terrible just to listen to them, whatever they would say the next time. And this was going on until 1942. 1942, my mother, my father, my oldest sister, they were taken to Auschwitz. And that time, there was a deportation to camps and to Auschwitz. In 1943, somebody called and said Judenrein. Now, we didn't understand quite what that meant by Judenrein, but we said, whatever it is, we're not going to go out. We had to build a bunker in the attic, and we decided to go to the bunker. And we stayed 3 days in the bunker, and there was a baby, and the baby cried. So the mother had to put the blanket on the baby's head, and it was dead, of course. But after 3 days, we didn't have any water, we didn't have any facilities, and it was very hot in August. So we decided to go out. When we went out from the bunker, we have seen thousands of people laying on the grounds, thousands of people. So we just stood for a while, and later we just sat down the same way that anybody else. And that was that time we find out that they need some people, 120 of them, to liquidate a shop called Rosner. And that time, one of the Gestapo called my brother's name, my oldest brother Milton, and when he called my brother's name, we very fast went with him, though the machine guns are in work, but we didn't have anything very much to lose anymore. And that's the way we went to work. We went to the camp. So that was in Bensburg. And there was a liquidation of the Rosnes shop. There was a tailor shop, a very big one, a factory. So that's what we did. We were helping to liquidate whatever was left over. Of course, there we didn't stay very long. There was nothing to eat. And, the tears were going down. No facilities, whatever. So that time, my brother and my younger brother, they remain in Annaberg when they send us. But I and my sister, we went to another camp, ladies' camp called Neustadt.
How long were you in Benberg?
In Bensburg, in Benjin, I think about 2 or 3 weeks, not very long. But in Neustadt, I was more than a year. But see, there was not of it. In Neustadt, they had a Weberei, that means they were weaving fabrics. And there was no work anymore for the people, for us. So they sent us to Greenberg. It was a very huge camp. And there was ladies and men were there. But when we came, they sent the men somewhere else. So we took the job of that. So somehow I was lucky enough that the director of the factory pointed out to me that I'm going to be a welder. And I said I was just very happy because it means extra bread. My sister was in a weaving place where they weave fabrics, textiles. Most textiles were sent to the to people, actually to the military for parachutes. There was silk, woven silk. And I have been there, we have been there for a very long time. I would say very roughly a year and a half. And I was sweeping front of the camp, of the factory camp. And I have seen coming tanks. And when the tanks were coming, the soldiers was hollering very loud to us, "Ihr werdet sein befreit." We're going to be free because we're losing the war. In German, they said that. And of course, I went with a big smile to the camp, and I told the girls what I heard. But see, they didn't let us stay there. First, they came thousands from Hungarian women.
Of what?
From Hungary women. And they stayed with us for a while, and they decided we have to go on a death march. And the death march, we run. Not only we walk, but we run. And who couldn't walk, they were shooting. So I said to my sister that I don't think so I'd be able to go very far with them anymore. And so we have to just escape from there. There's no other choice. We just have to. And so I didn't know which way we're going to go, but I told my sister, I'm not able to go. I had wooden shoes, and the snow will pile up on my heels, and I couldn't walk or even run. So I told her that we have to just look for a place that we can just escape. So we didn't escape. First, we did escape, but the German people reported right away that they have Häftlinge that they have from KZ people. And police took us, and we went to Christianstadt. There was another camp, terrible camp. There were millions of lice. I mean, we had bugs too, but not in that, but lice, we didn't have it in other camps. But there were thousands of them, or maybe millions, who knows. So we knew that it means typhus or some other disease. So we stayed there probably like a month. And I never mentioned it that we were very hungry. It's just unbelievable that your tears were dropping down, not knowing it, because of the hunger. And so we decide to, in that camp, we decide to escape from there. And they were supposed to send us a week before we were there. And when they decide to do that to us, we, another 3 girls, who talked to each other, and we decided that 5 of us will escape from the camp before they starting to march again. Now, people who have swollen legs couldn't go. They were shooting them. So anyway, and we were running and running in forest until we decided to slow down and be covered with the branches of tree, because see, that was December 1944. It was very cold and a lot of snow, because we were afraid that somebody might see us. But how long can you just lay in the snow? So we decide to split, not to see where somebody goes, because that means you usually follow the other one. And we were, my sister and I were the last one to go. And we went, and I didn't realize that we were very close to a little country town, just very close, on the edge almost. We didn't realize that at all, because we were just laying. And there was a woman going with her ox, and she said to us, "Sind Sie Flüchtlinge from the Ost?" And we said, "Yes, we are Flüchtlinge from the Ost."
What does that mean?
That we are Flüchtlinge means prisoners. And that's the way she said, "I can give you any place in my house because there's a lot of military, but maybe somebody else there who has a house and maybe they will give you place to sleep." Well, we have seen a little house was abdomen, and we went in because we did need some rest. And all of a sudden, I have seen a man through the broken window who was wearing a shirt, and on the shirt was a P. So I said to my sister, "P," I said, "means Polish. Why don't I go out and ask him who he is?" I went out and I talked to him. And he said, "Yes, he's Polish." So I told him, you have to help us. So there was a Sunday. He went to the city, Sommerfeld, because he had a friend, and he told him about his trouble, that he has 2 women who were in a camp and escaped. What you going to do with them? Because he couldn't have us because he had a lot of German military there. So those people came all drunk Sunday, and they told us that they're going to have us and they're going to help us. But you have to just walk whatever the miles are to Sommerfeld. So the next day, we got up in the morning and we decided to go, of course, because we couldn't stay over that very young man. And there were officers, Polish officers, they were working. They did have to work in Germany. And we came then finally, and they gave us until there was December, and we stayed with them until late February. They were wonderful to us. They bumped this Sommerfeld, the city, so everybody was supposed to go to the cellar. So we told, there was another officer who lived with him too. I said, "Why don't you all go? Because what will happen to us is happened." So they said, "No, if you're not going, we're not going either." And they stayed with us. And at the end of February 1945, the Russian army came to liberate us.
So when the war was over, then you went back to Bedzin?
To Bedzin, yes, I did. But there were very few people left over, and the city was not the same city anymore. So, I mean, nothing was familiar anymore, and nobody came there back, except for one thing. When we came to Bedzin, somebody told us on the street that there are some Jewish people live in this house. So, because it's getting dark and you have to just go to find a place to sleep. So when we came and we rang the bell and he came out, and we told him that we survived the camp and we need a place. So he said he can give it to us. So we went out. We said, the worst thing, we're going to just sleep on the bench on the Union Station. But another lady told us about some other place there was a lady who survived with her daughter. And she said, yes, you can stay with me. But I didn't stay very long. I was looking for work. So I got a job in Mysłowice. I was the secretary to the captain of the police in Mysłowice.
Where is that?
Near Będzin, between Będzin and Katowice. But I didn't work there too long. I decided to look for something else, not the police. So I went to Katowice, and I was accepted to the Jewish State Committee. There was not the local committee, but there was the state committee. And I worked until August 1945. And I think I mentioned it, that 1945, and when I was in the state committee, I found my brother's name on the last page and decided to go to Germany. And the Italian transport took us from Prague. They thought that we were going to go to Italy with them. But in Munich, the train slowed down, so we just went out.
And your sister was with you?
All the time. Well, I didn't want to live in Germany, and so we could register ourselves where we want to go. And I always want to go to the United States, and so I registered to the United States. And it took another year or so because we lived almost 5 years in Munich. Now, first I was in the Alps. My brothers they were liberated there in Markt Oberdorf. That's in the Alps, very pretty. So it was nice after the war to live in a place like that. But later I got married, and I lived in Munich. And I had a daughter, Luisa, was born that time. And it didn't take us that long. They sent papers to us, and the papers were from Mr. Keller from St. Joe. He was our sponsor. You did have to have a sponsor. If not, you couldn't go, because they did want us to have a job and place to live. And that's where we were. The people were wonderful to us, except it was very hot, and we're not used to the heat. So it was something very new to us. And finally, we decided to come to Kansas City because it's a bigger city with more opportunities than St. Joe.